That is, according to Buddhist terminology, the rest is attachment or mattering. And I think Buddhism is the first and most profound psychology that exists on this planet. For those of you who haven't gotten familiar with it, I highly recommend it. So let me continue to complexify the map for you, because what I want to do is to complicate matters. I prefer the term mattering to meaning for its ability to encompass and unfold, to embrace meaning and caring, mind and heart, feelings and ideas, for they're not separate nor are they related in a linear cause and effect sequence. Instead, they're inextricably intertwined, each implicate in the others, and deeply enfolded in the matrix of human experience. Mattering. The mattering map is many things at the same time, too many, in fact, for the human mind to grasp all at once, and so requiring revisiting and multiplicity of perspectives. It is, in one sense, a model of meaning-making, of what matters in psychological life. Humans are nothing if not social creatures, and all the social relationships are organized by mattering. If you think about it. Our human minds cannot do otherwise than search for mattering. Our human hearts cannot do other than have others matter to us and ourselves to others. We're built this way as exquisitely social animals. Our neurology is designed this way, and there's been a lot of recent research that doesn't really confirm it, but what it does is show what part of the brain is working when these things happen. So a lot of you are probably familiar with the recent research on mirror neurons, which is a very exciting thing. Mattering subsumes and contains what are dichotomously named the cognitive and the affective, the psychological and the sociological, the individual and the cultural. Additionally, mattering is inextricably intertwined with matter, each of which shapes the other through processes alternatively named genetics, biology, psychology, culture, or human experience. It is at the same time a meta-concept and the glue of all human experience. Mattering is what unites diverse aspects of the context into patterns that repeat themselves sufficiently to be designated in our human minds as significant, and it's what connects us to each other so irrevocably. As much as matter is a sine qua non of our material existence, so is mattering of our psychological, spiritual, and cultural aspects. It's the glue. And there's more to be said about the inextricable relationship between matter and mattering. There's an ongoing conversation between human genes and the environmental context. Environment appears to have the louder voice. More accurately, they act in concert. There are no soloists. The metaphor of a brain map is one frequently invoked by contemporary neurologists and also genetic maps by geneticists. And so in using a map as a metaphor, I'm trying to maintain the compatibility with those other fields so that we begin integrating not only other kinds of psychologies, but neurology and genetics and the other things that need to be integrated in a 21st century science. Human thought, feeling, and responses used to be conceptualized as occurring in specific isolated areas of the brain. As neurology has been increasingly able to look at that brain while it's responding, it's become apparent that the brain itself is connected in complex and interacting networks and does not function autonomously in isolated locations. It may well be said that there are no isolated and unchanging locations within the brain, and there are none on mattering map either. In the human brain, enormously complex circuitry connects disparate locations and thus permits complex biochemical, energetic, psychological, sociocultural experiences, including but not limited to memory, suffering, pleasure, love, desire, and despair. Complex neural circuits fire in harmony to produce these experiences. And the more they're associated with each other, the more they become associated and begin to fire together, as originally noted by behaviorists many, many years ago. In the 1940s, that was one of Hibb's principles. The architecture of the brain is continuously modified by each of these events and is characterized by varying degrees of plasticity throughout any lifetime. Change is not always possible, not only always possible, but inevitable. The enormous number of actual and possible interactions defies comprehension by that very same human brain. Can the human brain ever comprehend its own complexity? Paradoxically, the human senses cannot perceive. I want to give you one more aspect of the mattering map before I go into some specific clinical issues to get you grounded a little bit for those of you that feel like you're floating right now. And that is the idea of energy fields. Mattering can also be conceptualized as a force field, as interpersonal gravity. There are multiple energetic forces impinging on any individual and any social action. Much as various areas of the brain may be linked in a particular response, so does mattering always have multiple sources and manifestations. You might picture each of us and all of us as enveloped in a force field, a cloud of energetic probabilities and potentials. This field does not stop at the skin or at the nerve endings. It's unbounded. Should it encounter a different energetic system, which it inevitably must, they can interact, they can clash, or they can fall into synchrony with many variations in between. This process of entrainment, is that a concept people are familiar with, entrainment? This process of entrainment has been noted in many natural cycles, including that of menstrual cycles beginning to coordinate when groups of women are living together. That's the most common description you hear in training. The energetic cloud in which we are all developed can and has been observed to overlap with others when people are well in tune with each other, and actually through Kirlian photography to merge into one energy field when two people are in love. Everybody knows what Kirlian photography is? They're taking pictures of the energy field outside of people or outside of plants. Those are the kinds of experiments where you see they cut a leaf off of the plant and the plant is wounded. There's a space there in the energy field. So they do that Kirlian photography also with people that don't like each other, that like each other, that are in love, to see what happens to the energy field. And that kind of entrainment is also at the heart of a good therapeutic relationship. That's why I bring it up. One can feel the rhythms coincide. So I train therapists, and when I begin training, when I start training a beginning therapist, one of the things I ask them to do is sit down next to me while I'm doing a practice therapy session. Because I do a lot of, I come out of the tradition where I role play proceeds. And one of the things that I ask them to do is just sit next to me and feel the rhythm of the session and not worry so much about what I have to say to the person. And if the rhythm is working, the therapy is working. The mattering map is not a map like the ones hanging on the walls of geography classrooms around the world. These flat two-dimensional representations fall short in several aspects in addition to their cultural specificity. The mattering map is a living, breathing, multidimensional, morphing entity. It cannot hold still. It's alive with forces and vectors that change its shape and its valence slowly or rapidly, but constantly. The mattering map comes to rest only when observed, and what is observed is not what was there a moment before. The observation altered probability into presentation. So before observation, all you have is probability. And what we know about people when we diagnose them or label them, what we think we're freezing in time what really is probability. This person might do this in this situation. They might surprise you and do something else, but they're probably not going to. And we have a tendency, because of the way our human senses work, to freeze that into a snapshot instead of the movement that it is, and use that for diagnosis. For the sake of clarity, use your human neurological system here to imagine a map that can fully represent terrain, climate, airflow, and other energetic forces impinging on the territory. On this map, volcanoes erupt, rivers change their course, storm clouds gather and dissipate, boundaries shift, oceans ebb and flow, the sun sometimes shines.